movement, and that started to drive really more of a compliance focus. We went from there to something just called diversity or sensitivity training that invoked all the old Rodney King, can we all just get along? And that was great. There was one hiccup. The unintentional consequence was it did a great job helping folks have dialogue with people who were different than them, but it also did a great job building stereotypes for that very same person, which we would definitely say we want to stay away from. So today we're moving towards a conversation of inclusion, of engagement, of respect. Versus a micro-affirmation where they're all small, tiny little gestures, tones that send a message based on my culture. It's important because it's going to send a message of either I value you and include you or I don't. The second tool is to educate with humility. Now, you're going to have lots of opportunities to do this. I have a good friend. His name is Miguel. Miguel lives in Portland, Oregon. Miguel has a huge historic home. He spent about 3 years restoring it. It's gorgeous. Miguel's from Costa Rica. He finished the inside of his house, and then he came outside to work on the outside yard. On the very first Saturday, he got up, put his old jeans on, a ragged t-shirt, went out by the front door. He started weeding. So he's bent over, weeding by the front door. A car comes driving up. It stops in front of his house. Do you know where I'm going with this story? The window comes down, a woman's head peeks out and says, anybody want to guess? How much? How much? He got up, he looked, he smiled, he dusted himself off, he walked over and said, oh, thank you. You must like my house. The woman's face got red. He said, you know, I've worked on it really hard for the last 3 years, trying to refurbish it and renovate it and keep part of its historic beauty. I'd like to invite you inside so you can see my home. The woman almost felt obligated. She's like, I would love to, sure. She got out of the car, she walked in, they had a tour, they came back out. Now, they're the best of friends. They're the best of neighbors. And I love that story because Miguel chose to educate her with humility versus humiliating her. Educating her with humility versus humiliating her. That's a difference between being PC, politically correct, and PC, personally conscious. There is a difference to both of those. So think about that as you may choose to educate others. Actually, if you think about it, 50% of your happiness comes from a genetic predisposition. 50% of my happiness comes from a genetic predisposition. That's great, but that leaves 50% wide open. 40% actually comes from intentional activities. Things you choose to do, things you choose to be a part of, ways you choose to respond, people you choose to hang out with, when you choose to be joyful, because joyfulness draws people to you. And then the other 10% is actually comprised of your circumstance. So if you have good health, what your socioeconomic status is, where you are in life. This 40% is a big chunk. So you have to make a decision to choose happiness. And the reason I want to bring this up is because you can work really hard on all these other tools, and you're going to run into that one person who doesn't want to hear it. They don't care. They already have a bad attitude. They're going to continue to have a bad attitude. And everything you try is not going to do any good. But don't give up. Don't give up. If you've tried and you still feel like you're hitting a brick wall, take a deep breath and keep on walking. Because you're going to run into those folks. And you have to be intentional about how you want to respond to them. You can't let them steal your joy. You can't let them steal your happiness. Be respectful. Be respectful to them. Because remember, as I said earlier, it's not about changing your personal beliefs, but it is about how we interact and respect each other every day.